Hello and welcome to Winchester Now. I'm Mary Blaxland with some of the stories making the news in our city this week, including plans for the future of one of Winchester's most famous landmarks. We hear more about a new arrival at Winchester Cathedral, and bells, music and dancing. Mayfest returns to the city. Winchester Radio. It's one of the most famous landmarks in Winchester and boasts one of the best views of the city. And plans have been drawn up to rejuvenate St Giles Hill Park. A group of volunteers has also come together to raise money and organise working parties to maintain and improve the area. I've been speaking to Mike Biden, who's trustee of the Friends of St Giles Hill Park, and we began by talking about what makes this area so special.
It's very special and it's also very important because, of course, the western flank of the hill is the landscape setting for the whole city. People walking down the high street look down to the statue of King Alfred, and behind is that lovely green backdrop, which are the trees on St Giles Hill.
And it's featured in so many pictures over the years as well. It's got such a history to it.
It has, from the famous print of the view over Winchester, painted in the 18th century, the east prospect of Winchester, to modern artists, and you can find modern artists still painting pictures of the high street or of the hill from beneath the statue. So it's a special place for artists, it's a special place for residents. It was originally an open area that the citizens of Winchester used to come up and picnic on and watch the sunsets, etc. And then in the late Victorian period, it was acquired by the city, partly through an earlier purchase of land and partly by a donation from the Earl of Northbrook. He donated some of the land because there was quite a public outcry that the citizens didn't want to lose their access to their viewpoints and picnic spots.
And now there are plans to improve this area. Tell me a bit about those.
Yes, well, the park was originally laid out in 1890s, and it had some work done on it in the 1990s. There was a lottery bid to improve the park, the paths and so on. Unfortunately, that was not successful, but the council did spend some money on improving some of the steps and things and repairs. But it's now almost 30 years. The park has sadly suffered quite a decline in that time, and so it's time really. We all came together, I think, to improve the park. The current initiative started a couple of years ago with Councillor Charles Radcliffe. He had grown up on the hill and had fond memories of playing as a boy in the woods and so on. He had recently returned to the city and was somewhat dismayed, I think, by the state it had fallen into. So he used his position on the town forum to ask the City Council to produce a new management plan. It took a while, but we now have a new management plan that was presented to the Town Forum in March and has generally been welcomed because it's going to see considerable improvement, I think, in the level of maintenance on the hill.
So what sort of things might we see in the future?
Well, the first thing is to solve some of the problems. The trees, for example, which are one of the glories of the hill, there are over 800 trees. About 40 are scheduled to come out because of disease, ash dieback in particular. Many other trees also need some tree work, some tree surgery to remove dangerous limbs and so on and make the park safer. The second priority is to cut back some of the ivy, which is strangling some of the trees. The third priority, I think, is to clear a lot of the self-sown saplings and the self-sown undergrowth, which is giving us more of a monoculture, and we want to see more biodiversity. We want to see more variety of plants. We want to open up the views, and we want to see an emphasis on creating a more interesting natural environment.
The Friends has been set up and you're now a charity. What's going to be your role?
Primarily our objective is to organise some working parties. These can play a big role in tackling some of those issues, particularly clearing some of the scrub and the undergrowth and helping with some of the replanting of smaller trees and bushes and so on for new growth. We've just in fact held our first event, which was a really successful litter pick, and we were delighted when some 30 people turned up. So the Friends has got off to a rather flying start. We hope that in the longer term we'll be able to agree with the council some of the improvement projects that are needed and raise some fairly serious money, hopefully, because unfortunately a lot of the landscape features like the paths and the steps and the old ironwork and so on are in poor condition. We're going to have to apply for government grants or from grants from wider organisations. the council will need a really vibrant voluntary organisation like ourselves of residents in support of that if we're going to be successful in those bids.
And what do you hope for the future?
We hope to keep it a very special place, both for visitors and for residents. It's special particularly for people who come and walk their dogs. We know somebody who drives from Alresford every day to run her dog on the hill. And it's also special for the students because they don't have a lot of outside space, I think. We always get quite a crowd coming out for the sunsets on a nice evening.
If you'd like more information about the Friends, visit their website, friendsofstgileshillpark.org. Plans for other parts of the city have also been in the spotlight this week. Discussions have been taking place about the demolition of the redundant Friarsgate Medical Centre. It's part of the central Winchester regeneration scheme, but is due to be landscaped ahead of the main works taking place. And hundreds of people have attended further consultations about proposals for Bushfield Camp. The former army base has been earmarked as a business park, with parts retained as open space. Opponents are worried about the impact on the environment. It's not the only controversy in the city this week. With that and other news, here's Steve Walker.
Residents near Winchester are vowing to fight a proposal which would see more lorries passing through their village. Recycling firm Ecogen operates a facility in Kingsworthy and has applied to the County Council to increase the number of HGV movements to 80 a day. The company says it would help the county reduce waste, increase recycling and tackle the climate emergency. Local residents, however, say it would be dangerous for other road users, those walking along the narrow pavements, and would increase noise and pollution. A city centre road is hosting a special event this weekend to bring attention to its businesses. Parchment Street has the highest number of independent shops, but traders often feel they lose footfall because they're off the high street. The promotional weekend, called Patronise Parchment Street, aims to raise awareness of what they have to offer. On Friday and Saturday there will be discounts on offer and events such as face painting, treasure trails and raffles, as well as history tours. A special Parchment Street pie will be introduced. Work is beginning to update another area of Winchester. The plans for King's Walk include a new courtyard area and improving the entrance with new signage, planters and paintwork. King's Walk is within the wider Central Winchester Regeneration Plan, and the improvements are taking place ahead of the main works. A new website has also been launched to provide shoppers and visitors with information about the range of independent local businesses in King's Walk. You can find the website at kingswalkwinchester.co.uk. The Royal Logistics Corps based at Worthy Down has been granted freedom of entry to the city of Winchester. It was one of the first duties by the new Mayor, Councillor Angela Clear. The right of freedom of entry is an ancient privilege and allows the Corps to parade through the city to the beat of drums with swords drawn and bayonets fixed. The Royal Logistics Corps is the largest corps in the British Army, with 14,000 regulars, and 2023 marks its 30th year. It will exercise its freedom with a parade through the city on the 1st of June. And finally, 36 Swift boxes have been installed along a road in Week. Trussell Crescent is home to one of the largest swift colonies in the city. In 2018, the Hampshire Swifts Group found nest sites at 16 locations. To save the colony and to help it expand, the group suggested to the City Council that nest boxes be installed. They say that wonderful flying displays can be seen in June and July. And that's today's roundup of the news.
From Swifts to peregrines, and thousands of people follow the story of our peregrines at Winchester Cathedral, whether monitoring the webcams online or watching them perched on the north side of the building. This month, Winnie, who's been nesting in the city since 2011, had one chick, which has just been ringed. I caught up with Keith Betton, chair of the Hampshire Ornithological Society, to hear more.
Well, this peregrine chick is the only chick in the nest at Winchester Cathedral, and this morning we've been up to have a look at it, check it over, and it's absolutely fine. It's a female. It weighs just over 800 grams, which is probably about the same as her father, even though this chick is now 2.5 weeks old. Yeah, it's a lovely chick, in good condition. We've put a couple of rings on its legs. One of those is a metal ring, a bit like a license tag. The other one is a larger ring, which is coloured orange with black lettering, which means we'll be able to track her in years to come.
And how important is it that you put those rings on?
Well, if we don't put rings on these birds, we don't know much about the future. We see birds sitting around, they turn up at nests and whatever. We've got no idea where they came from, how old they are, who they are. Whereas with the colour rings, well, we know exactly who they are, and that means we have a better idea of how long they live for, their relationships. Sometimes they split up, they don't get on. And, that just gives us a way of tracking the family tree of the peregrine going forward.
Just one chick this year. How unusual is that? Because I think one year Winnie had 5, didn't she?
Winnie is now at least 15 years old. I've been watching her since 2010. Now, she could be older than that. And beyond the age of 15, peregrines can still live. The oldest we know is 21. But her ability to create fertile eggs now is probably at its lowest point. So I suspect we won't see many chicks from Winnie going forward. You're right. In 2020, when we were all down and fed up with life, she came along and gave us 5 chicks. And she reared them all to flying stage, which is fantastic. That was unusual in itself. To have one at 15 years old, I think it's pretty good.
And how many chicks has she had? She's quite an amazing bird, isn't she?
In the time that I've been watching Winnie, she has raised to the flying stage at least 27 chicks. Maybe 28 if this one makes it, but we don't want to count our chicks before they've fully flown. We know a few of them still. One of them I know, a male, he nests in Berkshire every year. Another male I know has been around Romsey quite a lot. So by having these rings, we know about her chicks, and indeed sometimes we know about her chicks.
And there's a lot of love for Winnie, isn't there, around this area and further afield, and for William, her partner now. It was Chester, now it's William. There's a lot of love for them, isn't there?
Yeah, peregrines really do bring something out in people. I don't know the exact figures, but at least 20,000 people a month watch those cameras. I just know by the number of emails I get that people are really fascinated about it. And I think the thing that sums it up for me is that when the first egg was laid last year, I got an email from somebody in Canada to tell me about it. I hadn't even spotted it, and someone was watching in Canada and told me. I think peregrines are interesting birds. They're the world's fastest flying bird, and they've had a tough time over the years. They were at rock bottom about 40-50 years ago. They've come back. They used to nest on cliffs. Now they nest on cliffs and buildings, so it's wonderful.
And we're incredibly lucky to have them here at Winchester Cathedral.
We're very lucky to have them in Winchester. They were on the police HQ when that existed, and we didn't know where they were going to go to. We actually put up a couple of boxes in the hope they might go elsewhere, but they didn't, and we followed them to the cathedral. We knew where they were going to go for, and it's just below the rose window on the north side. So you can come along and have a look at the chick when it gets about and hops off the tray and scares us all by taking its first flight. That'll be really exciting. The north side of the cathedral, not far from I think it's the Mercure Hotel.
What's it like when that happens?
Well, the first flight is likely to be around about the 2nd or 3rd week of June. And that is a bit of a terrifying time for us because, a female peregrine like this is going to be heavy. When it takes its first flight, it may not get very far, may just crash land on the grass, and we have to be ready for that. And this actually happened a couple of years ago. There was a group of Polish tourists sitting by the statues out here on the grass, having a nice time, having a picnic. Suddenly, a baby peregrine appears straight off the ledge, first flight, first crash landing, first Polish tourists. Peregrine was sort of shouting at the tourists. Tourists were all pointing at the peregrine, and it was chaos. The vergers are fantastic here. They come out. We've got a box there already, which is called Peregrine Recovery Box, and it's a cardboard box with a towel in it and some gloves. And one of the vergers will stand in front of the peregrine, kind of distracting it, whilst the other one creeps up behind with a towel, chucks it over the peregrine, scoops it up, takes it back, and puts it in the ledge.
And they always seem to be unscathed because it's a long way down from that ledge.
Well, birds are meant to fly, and even if they don't fly, they're quite bouncy. So I think, if you put your wings out, you may have a bad landing, but as long as you don't crash into something like a wall, you're probably okay.
Hi, I'm Paul Blitz, and it's time for this week's shout-outs. We'll start with a big well done to all the runners who took part in last Sunday's Race for Life in Winchester. Hundreds of people, young and old, pounded around the River Park and helped raise £25,000 for cancer research. It's now in its 30th year, and many race with names on their backs in memory of loved ones who have died from the illness. Special mention to race manager Chloe, who's taken part in the race for 20 years. She first ran it with her mum when she was only 4 years old. As a family, they've raised over £17,000. And £25,000 was also raised by people who joined the Trinity Big Sleepout, which we told you about last week. 150 people camped out in the grounds of Winchester Cathedral to support the charity's homelessness service. And a shout out now for two friends who tackled the world's biggest cross-country ski race on behalf of Winchester Hospice. Charlie Freeland and Will Potts took on the famous Valsalopet ski challenge in Sweden in memory of Charlie's brother Hugh, who lost his life at the age of 45 and had spent time at the hospice. He had attempted the same race 14 years earlier. The friends raised more than £13,500 for the service. A big cheer for members of Winchester Go LD, who pedalled hard at the charity's recent garden and craft fair fundraising event. Through the team's effort on the smoothie bike on the day, they added £400 to the Winchester Go LD store. And finally, congratulations to 4 members of the Oliver's Battery WI who are celebrating success in an international marmalade competition. The annual contest took place in Cumbria, and this year's event attracted more than 3,000 entries. Every jar is tasted, and all the entrants are given notes based upon appearance, taste and flavour. They won 2 golds and 2 silvers. Paddington would have been proud. More shout-outs for you next week.
Winchester Radio.
Finally today there was music, bells, clanging sticks and vibrant costumes as Mayfest returned to Winchester. Dances took place in various locations including outside the cathedral, the square and St Maurice's Covert, with residents and visitors stopping to watch. Kathy Nell is one of the directors of Winchester Mayfest.
It's a celebration of traditional English and British folk, many of which has developed different cultural origins. So, for example, there's Appalachian dancing, which is tap dancing on boards. It's come from northern clog dancing. Then it went over to America with the potato famine, got mixed up with some of the banjos on the slave plantations, and has now come back here as Appalachian clog.
And tell me about some of the costumes as well. Some of them are quite incredible.
Yeah, well, there's 2 different types of Morris dancing. There's the handkerchief dances, which people tend to think of as the traditional dances. They're the Cotswold Morris. And then you've got the more northern clog dancing teams, which are from, Lancashire and Yorkshire. And then you've got a real celebration, a mix of cultural nuances that are developed now. You've got double basses, you've got rock bands, you've got all sorts of costumes that are now current that people are using.
And they really are quite incredible, some of these costumes, aren't they? Talk about the ones that we saw just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, well, they're wearing like black, ragged overalls. They've got death masks. They're sort of the dance of the turncoat. So they go back in history, but they've just danced with the very strong beats, the drums, and they really don't look like your traditional Morris dancers.
The others are really colourful. We've got some purple costumes over here. There's some red ones. You're in blue.
People have developed their costumes over the years. A lot of them have very traditional roots. I mean, the Morris dancing actually comes from the word Moorish, so may have its roots in some of the African and Spanish Muslim sort of Islamic traditions that were at the time, and they've developed over the years. When you see the stick dances, they are celebrating the fertility dance. So a lot of them is mixed up with the pagan tradition of fertility. So obviously the sticks and the bashing of sticks is about male fertility. And then you see some female dancers with lots of flowers, which is celebrating the female aspect of fertility. So a lot of it's to celebrate the rising of the sap and the celebration at May time in terms of fertility.
And what do people get out of doing this and being part of this?
For all the dancers, it's very much about giving back. It's about the traditional roots, it's about practicing that they've done throughout the year, and then this is to celebrate English, British, folk, traditional dance, to try and keep culture alive.
You can't
can't stop smiling when you're watching it because it's a one-off. It's wonderful. Makes me want to get out there and do it.
What I love is the band. There's 5 fiddles there and the dancing is fabulous.
Oh, it's wonderful. Good to see old English traditions.
It's always a very good day. It's great. Normally I'm in kit, I'm dancing as well. This year I'm not. So it's great to watch it for a change. It's lovely. Yeah.
I think the number of people that you've got here in Winchester, everyone's stopping, everyone's smiling, and I think there's very much something about dance that goes back to our ancestry. When you hear drums, the smacking of drums and the smashing of sticks, there's not one person in the audience that doesn't smile, and I think there's something that really goes back to our Neolithic roots and beyond.
And plans for the future, hopefully just carrying on like this, bringing lots of joy.
Well, I really want people to join Morris dancing as well. You know, you can join tap dancing, sword dancing. There's so many youngsters that are really interested in this. And seeing some of the traditional costumes mixed with what we have in our culture today, lots of the black goth type dance teams, it's something for everybody. And, you know, all the teams would welcome new people joining.
And how can people find out more if they are interested in joining?
They can go onto the Mayfest website and also then they can go through the links of the teams. Each team has got their own website and they can link with somebody called the bag man, who is the person who basically looks after the bag and is the one who will organise all the different events.
That's all from Winchester Now for this week. Many thanks for listening.